The buzzards circled lower as Jezebel Cordova's lips cracked beneath the merciless Arizona sun. Her wrists, bound with fraying rope, had long since stopped bleeding where the coarse fibers had cut into her flesh. The Carranza gang had left her, tied to a dead mesquite tree 3 days ago, taking her father's silver mine documents and her dowry before riding off with cruel laughter echoing across the endless desert. Water, she whispered, her voice barely a rasp. The word had become her prayer, her curse, her final desperate plea to a god who seemed to have abandoned her in this wasteland of red rock and thorns. Through the heat shimmer, a figure emerged from behind a towering saguaro. Jezebel's sun-addled mind first thought it was another hallucination, like the phantom oasis that had tormented her yesterday. But this vision moved with purpose, silent as a shadow despite the loose stones beneath his feet. The Apache scout approached. With the fluid grace of a predator, his dark eyes taking in every detail of her condition. Kaya had been tracking the white men's horses for 2 days, following their trail not for revenge, but for the simple fact that they had fouled the sacred water hole near his people's winter camp. He had expected to find their bones picked clean by now, not this half-dead woman with fire in her dark eyes. Poor favor, Jezebel managed, switching to Spanish as she looked up at his angular face. Agua. Kaya studied her for a long moment. The sun had burned her olive skin to leather, but she still breathed, still fought. He had seen wounded deer with less will to live. Without speaking, he drew his knife, and Jezebel's heart hammered against her ribs as the blade approached her throat. The rope parted with a whisper. Her arms fell like dead weight, and Kaya caught her before she collapsed completely. He lifted a water pouch to her lips, tilting it carefully as she drank with desperate, grateful sobs. The liquid was warm but tasted like salvation itself. Gracias, she whispered against his chest, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. Kaya had planned to leave her at the nearest settlement. But as he held her fragile form, something stirred within him that had nothing to do with duty or honor. The woman possessed a strength that called to something primal in his warrior's soul. She had not begged, had not broken, even facing death itself. He lifted her easily, carrying her toward the hidden canyon where his horse waited. The Apache way was to leave the weak behind, but Jezebel Cordova was not weak. She was a flame that refused to be extinguished, and Kaya found himself drawn to her fire like a moth to candlelight. As they reached his painted stallion, Jezebel's fingers clutched at his buckskin shirt. "The men who did this," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "They killed my father, burned our ranch." Kaya's jaw tightened. The white men had taken more than water and gold. They had taken a daughter's peace, a woman's future. And that, in the Apache way, demanded blood. The hidden canyon Kaya called home carved deep into the red mesa like a secret kept by the earth itself. Ancient pictographs decorated the walls, telling stories of his ancestors' victories and defeats. A clear spring bubbled up from the rocks, feeding a small pool surrounded by cottonwoods that had somehow found purchase in this harsh land. Jezebel awakened on soft deer hides, her body aching but alive. The Apache scout sat cross-legged nearby, tending a small fire that cast dancing shadows across his weathered features. He had painted his face with white clay streaked with red ochre, and she realized with a start that he was younger than she. Had first thought perhaps 25 summers to her 22. "You have slept 2 days," he said in accented English, his voice carrying the musical quality of his native tongue. "The poison of the desert is leaving your blood." Jezebel struggled to sit up, her head spinning. "My name is Jezebel." "What do they call you?" "Kaya." "It means he who walks with spirits." He handed her a bowl of bitter tea made from desert plants. "Your enemies have made camp at Devil's Canyon. They wait for more men to join them." The mention of the Carranza gang sent rage coursing through her veins. How many? 6 now? Soon to be 12. His dark eyes met hers. "They speak of a great silver mine, your father's mine." Jezebel's fingers tightened on the bowl, the San Miguel claim. "My father died protecting it from them. They made me watch." Her voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. I am the last of my family. The mine is my birthright. Kaya studied her with the intensity of a hawk watching a mouse. You would face them again? You who could barely hold water to her lips? I am stronger than I look. She met his gaze without flinching, and I have nothing left to lose. Something shifted in Kaya's expression, a recognition of kindred spirit, perhaps, or the acknowledgement of a worthy ally. The Apache way is not the white man's way. We do not face our enemies with honor and rules. We are the wind, the shadow, the death that comes without warning. Then teach me, Jezebel said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Teach me to be the wind. For the next 3 days, Kaya transformed the Spanish rancher's daughter into something far more dangerous. He taught her to move without sound across the desert floor, to read the subtle signs of approaching danger, to kill swiftly and silently with blade and bow. Her hands, once soft from a privileged life, grew calloused from gripping weapons and climbing rocks. But it was in the quiet moments between lessons that something deeper began to bloom. When Kaya painted her face with the same protective clay as his own, their eyes would meet and hold. When he showed her how to track by reading the story written in disturbed earth, his hand would linger on hers. When they shared meals by the fire, their conversations stretched long into the night, revealing dreams and fears that neither had shared with another soul. Why do you help me? Sebel asked one evening as they watched the stars emerge in the desert sky. Your people have no love for mine. Kaya was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Finally he spoke. Because you burn with the same fire that drives me. Because when I look at you, I see not a white woman, but a warrior's heart, trapped in a body that others underestimate. Their eyes met across the flames, and Jezebel felt something shift between them. Recognition that transcended race and culture, and the bitter history that divided their peoples. The fourth night brought a desert storm that seemed to match the tempest building between them. Lightning split the sky as Kaya and Jezebel took shelter in a shallow cave, their bodies pressed close for warmth. The rain drummed against the rock face like Apache war drums, wild and hypnotic. In my tribe, Kaya said, his voice barely audible. Above the storm, we believe that lightning chooses its path long before it strikes. That some things are written in the sky before they are written on earth. Jezebel turned to face him, her heart hammering as fiercely as the thunder overhead. What do you see written in the sky? Instead of answering, Kaya traced the line of her jaw with his finger, his touch gentle, despite the calluses earned from years of warfare. I see a woman who should have died in the desert, but chose to live. I see a fire that burns brighter than any star. Their lips met as lightning illuminated the canyon, and Jezebel discovered that some hungers were deeper than thirst, some needs more desperate than survival itself. Kaya's hands tangled in her dark hair as she pulled him closer, their bodies fitting together as if they had been carved from the same stone. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. My people would call me a traitor, Kaya whispered against her forehead. Yours would call you a savage's whore. Then we are well matched, Jezebel replied, her fingers tracing the scars on his chest. Both outcasts, both rebels. They made love with the passion of two souls who had found their missing half in the last place they had expected to look. Thunder shook the earth as they moved together, their bodies speaking a language that needed no translation. When exhaustion finally claimed them, they lay entwined beneath Kaya's blanket. Listening to the storm's retreat across the desert, dawn brought harsh reality. Smoke rose from the direction of Devil's Canyon, and Kaya's face hardened as he read the signs. They burn the sacred grove, he said. The trees my grandmother planted to mark the graves of our dead. Jezebel's eyes blazed with fury. They desecrate everything they touch. She reached for her weapons, movements now fluid and deadly after days of training. Today we end this. Kaya caught her wrist. If we do this thing, there is no going back. You will be marked as an enemy of your own people. A tribe will exile me for taking a white woman to wife. Wife. Jezebel's breath caught in her throat. In the Apache way, we are already married. Our souls have touched. Our bodies have joined. Our blood will be mixed when we paint our faces for war. His eyes searched hers. But you must choose. Stay here, and I will return to you when the killing is done. Or come with me and become something new, neither Spanish nor Apache, but something born from the desert itself. Jezebel's answer came without hesitation. She lifted her hands to his face, painting her palms with the white clay and red ochre. Then she pressed them to his cheeks, leaving her mark on his skin as he had marked hers. I choose you. I choose us. I choose war. They painted each other's faces with the deliberate care of warriors preparing for battle. But their touches lingered, spoke of love rather than death. When they were finished, they looked like twin spirits of vengeance, beautiful and terrible, in their painted glory. Together, they rode toward Devil's Canyon, two hearts beating as one. Ready to write their names in blood and legend, Devil's Canyon earned its name from the way the wind howled through its twisted spires at night, creating sounds that made grown men cross themselves and whisper prayers. The Carranza gang had chosen it for the same reason Kaya's people avoided it. The supernatural fear it inspired kept unwanted visitors away. Jezebel and Kaya approached from the north, using the maze of red rock formations as cover. The outlaws had grown comfortable in their isolation, posting only one guard who dozed against a boulder with his rifle across his lap. Their horses stamped restlessly in the makeshift corral, sensing predators nearby. Joaquin Carranza sleeps in the largest tent, Jezebel whispered, pointing to the canvas structure at the center of camp. He will have my father's papers with him. Always keeps them in a leather pouch around his neck. Kaya nodded, his eyes tracking the movements of the 6 men below. The new riders have not yet arrived. Good. We take them now, before they can mass their strength. They had planned their assault with the precision of a military campaign. Jezebel would create a distraction at the horse corral, while Kaya eliminated the sentries. Then they would converge on Carranza's tent, taking the outlaw leader alive if possible. The others would die, but plans, like prayers, rarely survived contact with reality as Jezebel crept toward the horses. Her foot dislodged a stone that clattered down the canyon wall. Sleeping guard jerked awake, his rifle swinging toward the sound. Jezebel froze, pressed against the rock face, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain he could hear it. Martinez, the guard called. Wake up, you lazy dog. Heard something. A second man emerged from his bedroll, stretching and yawning. Probably just a coyote, Diego. Go back to sleep. But Diego was already moving, his rifle at the ready. Seconds, he would spot Jezebel's hiding place. She had one chance. The knife Kaya had given her flew from her hand with deadly accuracy, taking Diego in the throat before he could cry out. He dropped without a sound, but Martinez saw him fall. Carranza, Martinez shouted, raising his own weapon. We're under attack. Chaos erupted in the camp. Men rolled from their blankets, grabbing for guns as Kaya's war cry echoed off the canyon walls. The Apache scout dropped from the rocks like a hunting cat, his tomahawk taking the second guard in the chest. Jezebel vaulted over the corral fence, her presence spooking the horses into a frenzy. The animals scattered in all directions, trampling. 2 outlaws who had been sleeping too close to the enclosure. She drew her pistol, putting a bullet through the chest of a man who tried to shoot Kaya from behind. The woman, Carranza's voice boomed across the camp. She's supposed to be dead. Jezebel spun to face her father's killer, her gun trained on his heart. Joaquin Carranza stood before his tent, his own weapon drawn, his scarred face twisted with rage and disbelief. He was a big man, thick through the chest and shoulders, with the cold eyes of a natural predator. "Hello, Joaquin," she said, her voice steady despite the fury burning in her chest. "Did you miss me? I should have put a bullet in your brain before we left you for the buzzards," he snarled. "Won't make that mistake twice." They fired simultaneously. Jezebel's shot went wide as Carranza's bullet grazed her shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the ground hard, her gun flying from her. Hand Carranza advanced, his face split by a cruel grin. "Just like your papa," he said, cocking his weapon. "Tough talk, but in the end, you all die the same." The tomahawk took him in the back, driven by Kaya's powerful arm. Carranza screamed, arching backward as the blade bit deep between his shoulder blades. He turned, trying to bring his gun to bear, but Kaya was already moving, his knife finding the outlaw's throat. Blood sprayed across the desert sand as Carranza fell, his eyes wide with shock and pain. With his dying breath, he clutched at the leather pouch around his neck, trying to deny them their prize even in death. The battle's aftermath left Devil's Canyon painted with blood and silence. Smoke rose from the scattered remnants of the outlaws' camp as Kalia knelt beside Jezebel, his hands gentle as he examined the bullet wound in her shoulder. The graze was shallow, but bleeding freely, and her face had gone pale beneath the war paint. "I'm all right," she insisted, though her voice shook with pain and adrenaline. "The papers, did you get them?" Kaya held up the leather pouch. "Its contents safe despite Carranza's dying attempt to destroy them. Your father's legacy is secure." Jezebel's fingers closed around the documents that had cost her family everything. Deed to the San Miguel mine, assay reports showing the richness of the silver vein, maps marking the precise location of the claim. All of it signed in her father's careful script, with her name listed as sole heir. "Should feel victorious," she said, staring at the papers. "But all I feel is empty." Kaya tore strips from his shirt to bind her wound, his touch infinitely tender. "Revenge is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. It sustains nothing." "Then what do I do with this?" She gestured at the papers, the mine, the weight of her inheritance. "I can't work the claim alone. I don't even know if I want to." "Then don't." Kaya's answer was simple, but it carried the weight of a life-changing decision. "Come with me. My people's summer in the high country, where the air is cool and the streams run clear. We could build a life there, away from the blood and the gold." Jezebel looked at him, this man who had saved her life, taught her to fight, loved her with a passion that transcended the barriers between their worlds. "Your people would accept me? Some would, others would not. But my grandmother, she who raised me after my parents died, she has dreamed of a woman with fire in her eyes, who would walk between two worlds." Kaya's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. She said this woman would bring healing to our people, and our people would give her a home. The sound of approaching horses echoed through the canyon, and they both tensed. Kaya's rifle was in his hands before the echo faded, but Jezebel placed her hand on the barrel. "Wait," she said. "I know that horse." A lone rider emerged from the canyon mouth, leading a pack animal. Father Miguel Santos, the priest who had baptized Jezebel, as a child dismounted with the careful movements of a man who had spent too many years in the saddle. His weathered face was grim as he took in the scene of carnage. "Mia," he said, his voice heavy with relief and sorrow, "thank God you live. We found the ranch burned. Your father's body, ... crossed himself. We feared the worst, the worst." "Already happened, Padre," Jezebel replied, "but I survived it." The priest's eyes moved to Kaya, taking in the Apache's painted face and the easy way he held his weapons. "And this is your rescuer?" "This is Kaya," Jezebel said, pride evident in her voice. "He saved my life. We have." She paused, searching for words that could bridge the gap between two cultures. "We have chosen each other," Father Santos was quiet for a long moment. He had ministered to the borderlands for 30 years, had seen love bloom in stranger places than a desert canyon. "The church teaches that love recognizes no boundaries of race or nation," he said finally. "But the world is less forgiving than God." "I know," Jezebel said. "That's why we must forge our own path." The priest nodded slowly. "Then I will help. You. There is a place, high in the Sierra Madre, where a few Apache families have made peace with the Mexican government. They trade fairly, harm no one, and ask only to be left alone. Father Sandoval ministers to them, and he would welcome you." Both Kaya and Jezebel exchanged glances. It was more than they had dared hope for a chance to build a life together without completely abandoning the world they had known. "What of the mine?" Father Santos asked, noticing the papers in Jezebel's hands. She looked at the documents that had caused so much death and suffering. "Have an idea about that?" The Sierra Madre rose like a green wall above the desert, its peaks crowned with snow even in the heat of summer. The Apache settlement of Corazon de la Montana nestled in a hidden valley where two streams converged, creating a meadow rich enough to support both farming and grazing. Here, 50 souls lived in harmony, Apache families who had chosen peace. Over endless war, Mexican settlers who had fled the violence of the lowlands, and a few hardy souls who belonged to neither world but had found acceptance in this refuge. Father Sandoval was a small man with kind eyes and hands, stained permanently. Black from the printing press he used to create books in multiple languages. He greeted Kaya and Jezebel with genuine warmth, blessing their union in both Apache and Spanish. Traditions beneath an ancient oak tree that had witnessed countless ceremonies. "Love is the bridge between all faiths," he said as he placed their hands together. "What God has joined, let no man separate." The settlement welcomed them with cautious optimism. Kaya's reputation as a skilled scout and warrior preceded him, and Jezebel's knowledge of mining and business proved invaluable to the community. But it was her decision about the San Miguel mine that truly won their hearts. "I'm turning it into a cooperative," she announced at the first town meeting. Her Spanish and Apache now fluent enough to address the entire assembly. "Every family here will own shares. The profits will be divided equally, and the work will be done by volunteers on a rotating basis." The proposal sparked heated debate. Some worried about attracting unwanted attention from the Mexican government or American prospectors. Others questioned whether such an arrangement could work. But Kaya's quiet support and Father Sandoval's endorsement gradually won over the skeptics. "My wife has the vision of a true leader," Kaya said, his arm around Jezebel's waist. "She sees not just silver in the ground, but a future where our children can prosper without forgetting their roots." The first winter tested their resolve. Mexican soldiers arrived, demanding tribute and threatening to relocate the settlement. But Jezebel met them with legal documents proving the mine's legitimacy and the community's right to exist. When bureaucratic pressure failed, she offered the commanding officer a share of the profits in exchange for protection or bargain that transformed potential enemies into allies. Spring brought new challenges and new triumphs. The mine's first major silver strike yielded enough wealth to build a proper school, a medical clinic, and improvements to the irrigation system. More importantly, it proved that Jezebel's cooperative model could work by summer. She was showing signs of her first pregnancy, and the entire settlement buzzed with excitement. Apache women shared traditional remedies for morning sickness, while Mexican grandmothers offered advice on child rearing. The baby would be born into a world where cultural boundaries meant less than community bonds. "What do you think?" Jezebel asked one evening, as they stood on the hill overlooking their adopted home. Her hand rested on her still flat belly, and Kaya's arm encircled her waist. "I think our child will be blessed with the best of both worlds," Kaya replied. "Apache courage and Spanish determination, your fire and my connection to the earth. Stubbornness from both sides," Jezebel added with a laugh. "This poor child won't stand a chance." They watched the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Smoke rose from the settlement's chimneys, carrying the scents of tortillas and venison, of sage and wood smoke. Children played in the streets, their laughter echoing off the canyon walls, while adults gathered in small groups to share the day's news. "Do you ever regret it?" Jezebel asked. "Leaving your people? Choosing this life?" Kaya turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the last light of day. "My people believed that a man's true home is not where he was born, but where he chooses to make his stand. I have made my stand here with you, for all the generations to come." Their lips met as the first stars appeared, and Jezebel felt the deep contentment of a woman who had found her place in the world. They had been forged in the crucible of the desert, tempered by violence and loss. But they had emerged stronger than either could have been alone. 5 years had transformed Corazon de la Montana from a struggling settlement into a thriving community. The San Miguel mine had yielded enough silver to fund a proper church, a 2-story schoolhouse, and a trading post that drew merchants from as far away as Santa Fe. But the settlement's true wealth lay in its children, a generation growing up, bilingual and bicultural. Equally at home with Apache traditions and Mexican customs, Jezebel stood in the doorway of their adobe home. Watching her 4-year-old daughter Luz play with a group of mixed-heritage children in the courtyard, the little girl had inherited her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin, and she spoke 3 languages with equal fluency. In her arms, 2-year-old Esteban slept peacefully, his chubby fists clutching at his mother's rebozo. "Supply train from El Paso has arrived," Kaya said, entering with dust on his boots and satisfaction in his voice. They brought the new printing press for Father Sandoval and news from the outside world. Jezebel shifted the baby to her other arm. "Good news or bad?" "Both. The Mexican government has officially recognized our settlement as a legal entity. We're no longer squatters in the eyes of the law." Kaya's expression grew more serious. "There are rumors of American prospectors moving south, looking for easy claims to jump." "Let them come," Jezebel said, with the confidence of a woman who had faced down worse threats. "We have legal title, government protection, and enough armed men to make any claim jumper think twice." "Spoken like a true Apache warrior," Kaya said, kissing her forehead. "But you're also a businesswoman now. The cooperative has made you wealthy by any standard." It was true. The mine's profits, divided equally among the settlement's families, had lifted everyone from subsistence to prosperity. But wealth had never been Jezebel's goal. She wanted security for her children, a future free from the violence that had marked her own youth. "Mama, Papa." Luz came running, her dark braids flying behind her. "Grandfather Juan says there's a surprise in the supply wagon." Juan Morales, one of the settlement's founding members, emerged from the trading post with a wide grin. "Not for little ears," he said, winking at Luz. "But your parents might find it interesting." Curious, Jezebel and Kaya followed him to the supply wagon. Hidden beneath canvas tarps were crates marked with the seal of the Mexican Ministry of the Interior. Inside, they found official documents, maps, and a letter bearing the signature of the territorial governor. "What is it?" Jezebel asked, but the expression on Kaya's face, as he read the letter, told her it was momentous. "We're being offered territorial status," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Our own jurisdiction, with the right to elect our own mayor and council. We'd be the first officially recognized mixed community in the province." The implications were staggering. Not only would they have legal protection, but they would serve as a model for other settlements, proving that different cultures could coexist and prosper together. It was everything Jezebel had dreamed of during those long nights in the desert. "There's more," Kaya continued, pulling out a map. "They want us to establish 2 more settlements, here and here." He pointed to locations along the trade routes. "A network of communities based on our model." Jezebel studied the map, her mind already racing with possibilities. "It would mean splitting our population, training new leaders, establishing new mines." "It would mean spreading our influence," Kaya countered, making this way of life so widespread that no one could stamp it out. That evening, the entire settlement gathered in the church to discuss the proposal. The debate was spirited, but respectful, with speakers from both cultures weighing the benefits against the risks. Some worried about growing too fast, others about the attention success would bring. But in the end, it was the children who made the decision. "I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she never has to choose between her Apache heritage and her Mexican identity," said Rosa Delgado, holding her infant daughter. "This proposal offers that world. And I want my son to know that love conquered hate," added Thomas Crowfeather, his arm around his Mexican wife. "That his parents built something beautiful from the ashes of war." The vote was unanimous. Corazon de la Montana would accept territorial status and begin the process of establishing sister communities throughout the region. As the meeting broke up, Jezebel and Kaya walked home beneath a canopy of stars. Their children slept peacefully. In their arms, the future secure in their hearts. "Do you remember," Jezebel said softly, "when you told me that some things are written in the sky before they're written on earth?" "I remember," Kaya replied, his voice warm with love and memory. "I think this was always our destiny. The desert, the rescue, the love it, was all leading to this moment. To this life we've built together." They paused at their doorway, looking Back at the settlement they had helped create, lanterns flickered in windows, families gathered for evening meals, children played in the streets. It was a vision of harmony that had seemed impossible just 5 years ago. "Come," Kaya said, opening the door. "Let's put our children to bed and plan for tomorrow. We have a new world to build." As they disappeared into their home, the desert. Wind whispered through the valley, carrying with it the promise of all the tomorrows yet to come. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, and the sound seemed less like a howl than a song of triumph. The woman who had been left for dead in the desert had not merely survived, she had thrived, loved, and created a legacy that would endure for generations. And in the Apache way, that was the greatest victory of all.